Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Drazenovic from The Science Behind the Dragon. Today, we're having this DM encounter. As you all know, The Science Behind the Dragon is a learning community. We recently launched the Game Master Theory, where lots of DMs are coming to improve themselves and to receive some more structured education on how to handle their games.
And I am Morgan with MindFlakeMondays.com. I'm a pro dungeon master and as a podcast host, and I'm just really excited to be here talking shop with you.
Great, Morgan. Thank you, man. Thank you for doing this. I think we've been talking about doing this conversation for a while and kind of going deep into these topics that are starting to be out there. But as we all know, this pro DMing and paid DM stuff, it's quite polemic. You know, it's generating a lot of discussions. Would you say?
Yeah, it has. I mean, it's been doing it for a few years now. You got one side where everybody's like, "Oh, this is cool. You know, we can make money doing this," and then you got this other side which comes from more of that I've done this for 10, 20, 30 years and I never had to pay for it, so why do I have to pay for it now?
Right.
And it's you're on. It seems like you're either on one side or the other.
Right. It's black or white. Right? It's black or white, and it's like paid DMs are the Siths, and the free usual more traditional play amongst friends is more seen as a Jedi take on this, and I really don't like it because I think that a lot of this comes from the fact that people don't understand really why people pay for DMs. It's like there's a misunderstanding on the why. It's like, oh, this guy's trying to just make money out of his friends, right? So I think that one of the things that we're trying to do at the Science Behind the Dragon is to get these organizations like Mindflight Mondays to be more out there and to be known by others, so people get a real sense of why they're doing this. Like, why would you make a business out of this sacred thing that you do with your friends? So maybe I think that one of the things that people will be very interested in is how come you got to do this? How does this start? And what is this?
For me, it's like a couple of years. I want to say like maybe 3-4 years ago, I saw an article about professional dungeon masters getting paid, and I was like, what? I've been playing this for 30 years and nobody's ever paid me. I said, what am I doing?
That's unfair,
man. But I kind of told you this off camera, but it was partially like just shocked that I might be able to do something like that for people who can't find games. But it was also like, well, I want to play as much as I can, and I got like a wife and a bunch of kids. So how do I play without, getting yelled at? Well, if people are paying me to run games for them, like
nobody's gonna stop you from that inside your house. Like it's like, babe, don't you have a game to go to? It's like, right.
Yeah, and so all jokes aside, I mean that's part of it. But like what you were saying a minute ago about why would somebody pay for this? Why are you trying to get money out of your friends? You don't generally run these games for your friends. If I had a table that I was playing for like 10 years, and then I was like, okay, guys, I'm a pro DM. If you want me to continue running, you gotta pay me. I'd be a really crappy friend.
Of course.
What pro DMs are doing is there's a lot of people out there that want to try these games, whether it's Dungeons and Dragons or Powered by Apocalypse, like Masks, or the new Avatar that just came out, or Call of Cthulhu. You get these books and you're like, oh, I want to try this, and you're in an area where nobody plays, or none of your friends that you associate with are interested in tabletop games,
right?
Or maybe they are, but nobody has any experience running the game, and you're like, well, what do I do? Do I just put the book down my shelf and never pick it up again?
Yeah.
Or do I find something to run it?
That's one of the main things. People are talking about how the industry is growing. So what does this mean? If the industry is growing means that more games are being sold, right? So people are buying more games. So what happens is that people buy a lot of games, they put it on the shelf in the hope that they can play it out, play this game with somebody. But a lot of times you have a lot of books in yourself that you've never tried, right? So I mean, I have a lot of friends who become more collectors than actual players. Yes, guilty as charged. Okay,
Yeah.
I think that the whole paying DMs has to do with making the game viable for people who are usually not able to make it viable, and also making the game steady, which is another one of the problems. When you play around with friends and your friend is suddenly busy, and it's like, hey guys, I've been running this campaign for a while now, and I'm sorry, but I don't have any more time. So let's see when we can just retake this in the future. And everyone's like, what? Are you seriously? I mean, gonna leave us like this? Abandon your party? And then like, who's gonna DM for us? It's like somebody may step up, maybe not. So
Yeah.
bye bye. You're not playing anymore, right?
Yeah.
So
It's hard. It's hard. I mean, there's been a lot of times before I became a professional dungeon master where I was in a similar situation where either I was running it and had to stop because my job changed, hours changed, or I was at a table where somebody was like running an awesome campaign and then they just couldn't do it anymore. Either, stressors or their jobs changed. There's so many reasons
thousand things.
my game performed. So, and that was part of the reason why, because like my biggest goal, my dream for this would be to one day be able to have DMs working for this company all the time. And if you want to play Dungeons and Dragons, we got somebody that can run a game for you. You want to play Call of Cthulhu, we have a Dungeon Master. Like that would be, the end goal for Mindfully Mondays.
Right.
Creating a company where you have access to all kinds of DMs, Dungeon Masters, Game Masters for different types of games that you want to play. Or if you have a game that just came out, we have people that are willing to step in and learn.
Right. Actually, you have a friend who hires game masters because he wants to try out new things. So he just, says, "Hey, would you be willing to look at this game and then run it for us?" So he gives the game master like a couple of weeks to go through the system and everything, and then goes and plays it. Of course, I mean it's a risk, because some systems are more difficult than others. But that's one of the reasons also people want to hire somebody, because if it's for free, I mean it's just what I do as a hobby. Then I can say, no man, I don't know the game. I'm sorry, man. But when you hire someone, you can say, hey, this is the game I want to play. So can you do it? It's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So there's a lot of advantages to paid DMing. Now,
There is.
this is one thing that I would be interested in talking also, because as we talked before, the science behind the dragon is reaching out not to every paid DM, because there's thousands of people around the world who are being paid to master. So it's really clear that this is a need and that people are willing to pay for it. But not all of them have done something like My Friend Mondays, man. You guys are not just you. This is not just Morgan with a brand.
No.
This is a team of people. There are several games going on. So how did that happen? I mean, how do you like all of a sudden start growing like an army of DMs?
So what happened is I started doing this by myself. I mean, I was doing everything, and where I was getting games that were overlapping, or I just wasn't able to go. And I didn't want to just say, sorry, I can't do this game for you. I hated that. So I was like, well, if I can't do this, I know a lot of great Dungeon Masters that I've played with, And so I reached out to a few of them and said, hey, listen, you guys know that this is what I do. I don't know if you guys have ever been interested in doing it yourself, but I know you're very good. I played with you. I trust you to represent the brand well.
Right.
Do you want to pick up this client? And it started off kind of like where I'd ask a couple guys to pick up clients here and there, and then we just kind of grew. And then it's so that's where we're at.
I think that's a very interesting phenomenon, because it's not only, and this is where it gets very interesting, because it's not only about getting people who are DMing to be paid. This is also telling somebody, would you like to DM? And he would say, I don't know. Well, you will get paid for it.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe I'll just give it a try.
Yeah.
It's like I'll just try to improve myself. I've done it a couple of times, but I don't know. But now that there's money involved, it's like maybe I'll make the effort, right?
Yeah, we'll see. And like the biggest thing for me is I screen everybody that comes on board. So the first few guys were people that I played with personally. The second few people that I brought on were people that I interviewed. I sat down and would talk to them for an hour and a half. Right. It's not like a classic interview. It's I talk to them. I get a feel for who they are, like their personality type, and then I ask them questions about. Go ahead. Sorry.
About their game, right? You gotta know what they think about the game, their perspective of the game, and everything. Yeah.
Well, but not just that, but how they handle situations. Like, because you're dealing with not like you're dealing with clients, right? So I need to know that you're going to be able to do what you have to do as a dungeon master, still lay down the law, but in a way that isn't going to make a client feel upset,
uncomfortable, yeah,
right? Because that's where it gets tricky with this stuff. Because you're going to come into contact with people that think, "Well, I'm paying for this, so I should be able to have that +5 magic sword." Well, that's not what you're paying for. You're not paying for me just to give you stuff. You're paying for a story and adventure. So you got to have those. You got to have dungeon masters that you trust that can hold on to that reign of like, hey, listen, let me guide you guys through this adventure. And so
so sort of like keep an ethic, like some specific ethics on game mastering.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do and what you don't do? Like where do you go, where you don't go? And that involves a lot of stuff like, how would you secure that they are not discriminating anyone, that they're not making anybody feel uncomfortable, that they're handling situations like, hey, you're being paid, and then like there's this player that's arriving late to the session. What do you do? How much time should you wait? What should you do if this happens twice or 3 times? How do you handle it? It's like there's a lot of stuff that as a dungeon master you have to handle regarding the human factor. That when you're not getting paid, you're not doing it professionally. Just do whatever you feel like doing sometimes, and you kind of develop sort of the way you think is correct. But it's different for you guys because you have clients, and it becomes a little bit more challenging.
It does. I mean,
go ahead.
It does. I mean, like I said, all the guys that are on the team, they all want to better themselves as dungeon masters, which is why they all were excited to jump into this program. And that's that's the other reason why if I'm hiring somebody, because I trust them as a dungeon master, but also because they want to continually improve themselves. And those are the kind of people that I think are really good as professional dungeon masters. Because as I think I've told you before, if you have already determined that you don't need to be any better, if you don't think you have to improve yourself, you are already not as good as you need to be. You're already below where you need to be.
Right.
You have to constantly want to get better. And that's the kind of people that I want.
And if there's something that you can improve at in several factors and dimensions and different stuff, is game mastering. Like, it has so many things to it that even though you're very good at some part of it, there's always some stuff that you're improving that is a little bit different. There's some stuff that maybe you didn't go too much into before, and now you're like, oh, let's explore this. Maybe you can get even better at this, So there's a lot of paths of improvement when it comes to game mastering. Now, so just so people know exactly what is the link between the science behind the dragon, I'm just going to explain a little bit about the program and all of this. So we launched this platform this year, the Game Master Theory, and it's at first it sounded kind of pretentious to say the Game Master Theory, right? But what we're trying to say is there's a lot of stuff out there. Like you see YouTube channels which are very good, which we love watching because they give you so much specifics about the game, about how to solve specific situations. Some of them go particularly to D&D, some of them go general to game mastering. But a lot of that is just people sharing what they have learned through the years, right? So we said there's a lot of stuff that we can say that it's more based on science, right? So I'm a psychologist, and the way this started was that like 16 years ago, or 17 years ago, we started getting together to play with people who belong to the social sciences field, right? So psychologists and philosophers and anthropologists. So we're just getting together, and so all of a sudden we're speaking about stuff that it's like, is it right to talk about all this stuff? I mean, it sounds weird, man. It's like we're talking about this as if it were like a scientific thing, and it's just a game. And we're just like, I don't know, man, it feels good. So we just started kind of creating all this philosophy and all these concepts behind, and we just started doing it for ourselves. We just started creating it, and then at some point when the pandemic hit, and we started seeing that there was all this pro DMing and all these artists going into it, we said, hey man, we kind of have a lot to share, so let's start doing it. So that's how the Game Master Theory came out, and when it came out, we said, okay, so why don't we try ourselves? Why don't we start looking for people who do this really well, like Mindflight Mondays, or we're reaching out to other organizations in other countries. We're probably going to have conversations with them too, and let's just put them through the program, right? So I think some of your guys, several of them, have already been taking the program. You yourself are, I think, in the middle of the program. So one of the things we'd love to talk about is, like, does it make sense to study something like this to be a DM? I mean, it is different from just like hooking to these channels where they give you tips. I mean, there's a difference between that and the program. So how does that go?
There's a huge difference. There's a huge difference. All right. So, I mean, everybody who's been doing this pretty much goes to those channels looking for advice and guidance. Whereas what I found with this program, like, we'll just talk about Unit 1 a little bit. What I loved about Unit 1, and I've said this before, and one of my Dungeon Masters, Dungeon Master Mal, he has said it, and he even said it after he saw a huge difference in his style of play. Unit 1, it immediately tells you, don't look here. Look at the other people at the table. Because as Dungeon Masters, we're always going, that's why you're in those channels. What do I do? How do I do this? What do I do to make, how do I fix this? And you're thinking all the time, how can I be better at doing voices? How can I make my game more fun? How can I do this? It's always me. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? And your first unit is focused on looking at your players, where they're at game maturity wise, like where their levels are, and then looking at how to interact with each individual one of them and how to take them from where they're at here and help build up those skills, give them the foundations, give them the confidence they need to become the role players that they want to be. And it's amazing because you kind of do these things a little bit, but you don't realize you do a lot of it.
Right.
It's really understandable. You're like, okay, all right, now I know how to look at this, and it really was a really good unit.
One of the big decisions that we had to make when we were making the program, when we're designing it, is what goes first and then what goes after. We are training experts, so that's a very big question always. It's like, what is the right sequence for learning? And the sequence kind of sends out a message. The sequence of the learning says what comes first. So we said we got to talk about the players first, right? And they're like, really? I mean, are we going to go? I mean, that, because it's kind of dense, because at some point it's like you're going through all these like 24 different skills that people have, and it's like, oh, we're going to do that in Unit 1. It's like, yes. Why? Because that is it. That's like the first lesson of game mastering is players are the foundation. And you're not looking at your players, you're not doing this right. Right?
I agree. It's like you're always looking at your players, but you don't realize it. And like I said, the way you break down the skill sets, and you kind of break down their maturity levels. Again, when I say maturity, I mean like where their skills are in gaming, not like their maturity. Are they acting like an adult or not? Not that type of maturity, but game maturity. You break it down in ways where it's very understandable, and then you kind of know how to address certain things and how to build certain skills and help them get to a level that they're going to be happy with. It's really cool because, again, you're so focused up here as a dungeon master. What do I need to do to make this more fun for my players? What do I need to do? And what you really need to first sit down and do is look at your players,
Right.
see what they need,
There's two ideas there that
and help
from what
them
you,
get there.
from what you were saying. First one is one of the biggest problems to handle as a game master is the different game maturity levels. Like you got this guy who's looking to really go deep into the character and impersonate the character, and then you have at the same table you have this guy that's only doing the hack and slash and just wanting the treasure and wanting to level up, right? And as a game master, it's kind of difficult to satisfy everyone. So one of the things that you could do is just bring up, the maturity level a little bit, just to bring this other player into the story a little bit more, and then kind of balance it to offering these opportunities for development. So that's one big idea there. And then the other idea is, and I think it's a very important thing. It's almost a taboo idea. There are people who play better than other people somehow, and it has to do with this maturity, which means that they understand what the entertainment of playing is about. One of the concepts we talk about is you are playing and you're having fun while playing, but when you are doing stuff with your character, the other players at the table are looking at you and they're getting entertained by you. So you're not only entertaining yourself, you're also entertaining other people, right? So maturity has a lot to do with that, with the fact that you understand that, for example, if you're going to be a lot of minutes on your character, a lot of like declining actions and stuff, I mean, you have to do it the best way possible, and the best, it has to be entertaining for everyone to watch, right? And so a lot of the maturity comes from the player not looking just at the sheet or only at him or herself, but looking at the whole collective, creative project that each game implies, right? So I think,
and understand what they're trying to do, so you can build what you should do.
Exactly.
Because you're trying to build a story together.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's not the Dungeon Master story. It's not the fighter story.
Exactly.
It's not the rogue story. It's the group's story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There is, because there are players who go at the table, and all they're thinking about is how they can do something wild.
Right.
Do this crazy thing, and they're not really looking at this general story. They're not looking at what everybody else is trying to accomplish. They just want to do something silly, and trying to help them realize, like, hey, you can do silly things, but you can also do these things.
And you have to kind of do the silly things, but they have to like fit, So when we look back and we're talking about what happened in this story, it's an amazing thing. It's like, oh man, I love when this guy just came out just in the right precise moment. It was amazing how this thing just fit together. I think that's what we're all aiming for. Right. So one of the things that we were a little bit, hesitant to do is to place all these concepts and names that we use for things, because that's one thing that we feel as trainers that we need to do, because we see all these channels giving a lot of advice, but they're all speaking like different languages. It's like Matt Colville is saying one thing and maybe talking about a similar thing than Guy Flanders, and these guys are just talking about the same issues but using like different wordings and all this. So we said, why don't we try to just create general concepts? But in that process, we kind of felt afraid that it was too complicated. Like it became too serious, too like university like or college like stuff. So I don't know how you guys felt about that.
I mean, Mal and myself and the others, we've all felt that it's pretty good. I mean, I don't feel like it's overly complicated. You have broken it down into a lot of parts, but each part you go into and you explain it, and there has not been anything I haven't been able to wrap my head around so far. I mean, it's been pretty good. I mean, I've really enjoyed it a lot. And speaking of like just taking what you guys are showing us and putting it into play. When I was starting Unit 2, it kind of hit me, because that's where you're learning about drives and what pushes your players, what makes them want to play, what makes them how to keep them interested and invested in the story. And I realized with some of my clients that I've had for over 2 years that I actually haven't asked them in a while, what their characters want to do. We've been so focused on what we've been doing that I hadn't stopped and asked, and I was like, wow, like we've been going on for 2 years. And I knew from the beginning what they wanted. The 2 years of playing, things could change. There's been a lot of things that have changed in the story, a lot of character developments that have changed, and so I stopped and I was looking over the charts, based on the different things.
Yes.
And then I created a bunch of questions and I sent it to them. And, a
Wow.
couple of them have already sent it back, letting me know what they're interested in. And I felt good about that. It's like, okay, this is good. Like these are things that I know.
Right.
But going through the program, it's like it reminds you and it teaches you new things of how to approach it. Like the questions I asked were based on what I saw in the unit.
Right.
Me coming up with random questions. It was related to what would be important to the characters based on those charts.
Right.
And I was like, that's cool. So it's I don't feel like the program's been overly complicated. I think it's been really nice in explaining each element that you're trying to help people.
This is for us one of the most important things of Unit 2 is that one of the memes that comes out all the time for game masters is this is what the game master planned, this is what the players did, right? Totally different, like Venn diagrams that are not overlapping at all, right? So so we said, hey, we kind of solved that problem a long time ago by having the discipline of getting the input from the characters and where the characters were headed. So one of the things you would find us doing a lot, but I know people do it, but we do it with discipline. Like each time that you go through 3 sessions or 4 sessions, you have these moments where I ask you, hey Morgan, so what is your character thinking now? What do you think he's feeling right now? Where do you think he's going? And at some point you say, I don't know, man. I think he just wants to leave this thing, man. He's sick. He's had it. You're like, oh man, I'm actually pushing this character out of the story. How do I re-engage the character, right? Or they give you something like, I've been thinking, that maybe I could do this or that. And you're like, hey, I hadn't thought about that. That's actually a really interesting, thing that I might want to explore in my story. So you get so much stuff from the players, from the way they see their characters, and when you put it into your story, it's almost impossible that they drift or they run to do other things because you're getting the input from them, right? So they're actually co-creating. So it makes sense that's Unit 2. Just if you want the story design, get the players involved and their characters really to be part of the story, right? It's kind of obvious,
and
but it's just the discipline, right?
It is discipline, but like I said, and I know we're just talking shop here, but I really do think the lessons have been really good. Again, the biggest part about it is breaking those things down into chunks of understandable information, and I think you guys have done that really, really well. So,
Great.
I'm enjoying the lessons.
This is one of the things that people ask. Well, they asked us definitely this in the beginning when we launched the program. They're like, we've never seen you guys. Who are you to talk about all this stuff, right? That was at first I was like, I was offended. I was like, how dare you ask us this, right? But I understood, of course, that we're not the typical guys that've been like designing tabletop role playing games, like in an important company, and like, oh yeah, I was involved in these books or that, and Wizards of the Coast. So now I get to tell you how to play, right? So we're not coming from that side. What we have done, and I'm just gonna explain a little bit how come we're doing this, and a lot of people don't know, but at least 4 people from our group, we've had many years of corporate training experience. So what we've done is we've lived off our own business and training people, designing training for executives, for people who are, struggling with leadership, struggling with communication, struggling with how they can really get their role in their job properly, right? So we've just taken all that experience and we said, how can we apply this to game masters? How can we help game masters train themselves? So that's why we come up with concepts, with a learning sequence, with examples, with workbooks, with things that can really help people go from doing this in an intuitive way to doing it more in a structured way. For example, with a leader, we do that. Like, for example, in a company, a leader may be intuitively good, but then they go through a leadership program and they're like, oh, okay, I did some of that stuff, but I wasn't to do it so steadily, so structurally. And now that I'm doing it and I'm aware and I'm conscious of what I'm doing, my leadership is, boosted definitely. So that's a concept. We're not coming out with something extremely new. We're just saying, hey, if you do this in a more orderly fashion, your game can improve a lot. So
Yeah.
it's as simple as that.
Well, I remember when you told me about how people were interacting with you at first. Like I was like I said, part of me was shocked because I'm like, if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I have something that might help you be better," I'm like, why not? But then, like I said, I think a lot of it is because we're artists. Game masters are artists.
Sure.
And tells you your Picasso isn't a Picasso. You go, how dare you think that you know my stuff better than me? And I think that's where a lot of that
resistance,
pushback you were getting, the resistance you're getting was probably from the artistic side, feeling like, how dare you ask me this?
Yeah. I think that just to like round out that concept, the way people get into game mastering, dungeon mastering, is kind of usually the same. It's like you accidentally find yourself in this position where nobody is taking that position. You say, okay, I'll do it. Oh, yeah, I'll do it. So you start doing it, and if you get negative feedback on that first time, you probably won't do it again, right? You
shut down,
right? But you get positive feedback. Oh man, I like your game. I like the story, and people are getting excited. So you're like, I think I'm doing something good, right? And you start getting that feedback over and over, and quite soon you start thinking very well about yourself. Right? You're like, oh man, I'm such a good master. So a lot of game masters develop this sort of like very self-centered stuff, and it's natural because they are kind of the center of the thing. They are the narrator. They're all like this, and it's still very fragile because each time you create a session, you don't have a parameter like a real parameter to say, okay, this is correctly done. Every time you develop a session, you take the risk to put it out there and say, okay, I hope it comes out well. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Right? So it's hard stuff to tell a game master you could be better. So it kind of hurts a little bit.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm, and you're right. That is like the norm for a lot of dungeon masters who start doing this for a long time. As I said, I've been doing this for 30 years. And I didn't start off I didn't get put in a position. It's because I played with my uncle. I started playing D&D when I was 5. AD&D second edition. They go for the win. But I learned because my uncle and my dad played, and they said if I wanted to play, then I needed to learn to read. So I went and learned to read, and they sat me down and taught me. And after that, I played. And as soon as I was a little bit older, I was like, now I'm going to run games.
Right.
I chose to do it, and it was terrifying. And I will be honest, I'm the type of dungeon master who never thinks he's good enough, which is funny because I'm a professional dungeon master.
Right.
I always think I'm not good enough. I can be better. I'm always thinking like that. Every time I'm about to run a session, whether it's for my podcast, whether it's for a client, or whether it's for my freaking kids, I get nervous as hell. Like Emin, the movie where he threw up before he went out and rapped. That's how I feel every time I go to a game.
Right.
But and I think that's why I'm so open to things like this. And I think everybody should be open to this because if you're not open to it, there's so much that you're missing because you should always be trying to better yourself. Somebody may know something you don't know. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to know everything. You could have been doing this 40, 50 years. There's something out there you may not know yet. And that's okay. Learn from everybody around you. Use every opportunity to learn. So, and that's what I like here in this program. You're giving people an opportunity to learn.
I think that's the main spirit of this whole these alliances that we're creating with pro DMs. We realize that these guys that were going pro were actually the ones that would say, hey, are you serious? You need more stuff to improve? Let's just bring it on, right? So definitely people who are really serious about game mastery and they really want to do it well, they won't have so much resistance. They'll say, okay, I mean, at least I'll give it a look, you know? And then when they give it a look, they start saying, okay, there's some stuff here I can use. So, so right now, and just to round out I think we have to wrap up the conversation. You know, as we might suspect, being game masters, we can do this for 3, 4, 5 hours straight. We just talk and talk. So, but I want to just finish by saying that what we're doing together with My Play Mondays, which is, by the way, one of the best groups that we've encountered globally. I mean, because they're so pro about the philosophy that they have and the way they are, the mystic they have amongst them, of improving, being flexible, trying to make it better, focus on the players, clients, right? What we're trying to do is just get game master theory to be better and better, and at the same time help them also be better and better, right? Because I think that one thing that we share, that we have in common, is that we believe that there's much more to be done when it comes to tabletop role-playing games.
Oh yeah,
right. So
the sky's the limit right now.
Right. So I think that I asked the other day in Twitter. I tweeted. So if you think like several years back, and you think where tabletop role-playing games are today, would you have imagined where we are today? And most people say, no, not at all. I mean, this has grown a lot. Okay, now imagine what comes next, right? So, do you think we can like really figure out what's going to come next? So that was a cool way of thinking it, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, hey, the sky's the limit. We can professionalize this. You know, this can be really interesting. It's an art. It's a performative art. It's an entertainment industry that's growing, and there's a lot of stuff to be done. And people like you guys, I mean, you're definitely gonna be. I'm sure that you're going to be doing some interesting stuff some years from now. Different than the mainstream stuff. Like we all know that we have streamers now that are doing great, like Critical Role and all of this, and a lot of famous people involved in these projects. But there's so many like territories that are being explored right now.
I mean, homebrew creation, like content creators.
Like
I'm not even talking about the big people. I'm talking about like the smaller ones. And like my favorite ones. I'm going to say it. Is Oracle Publishing. I love them. It's a husband and wife duo. They create such amazing content, and they are just incredible people. Like it's the different content creators and the artists and the dice makers that I've met that really have pushed me forward into what I'm doing. Because when I first started doing this, I had like no followers, no connections. I went straight into this. Because I didn't really do this stuff on social media. I didn't really reach out to people on social media. And honestly, besides meeting so many amazing clients and building an amazing team, the biggest thing that I'm happy about is the different people I've met in this community. Like you and your team. Like it's just so cool how the community is. And that's what I think is going to push the community to new heights. Is the way we're also supporting each other.
Absolutely agree. But just like streaming channels, that's a whole different thing. I would like to talk about that too, because that's the show part, right? Of this. This is a show industry that has derived from the game mastering and the role playing industry, which is a different line of work. What we're talking about here is actually just playing. You don't have to stream it. Just to playing, right? Yeah. So people have to start differentiating between those two, and just doing that, you realize there's a huge universe of communities doing a lot of crazy stuff. So yeah, I mean, we are also loving that part, Morgan, and I think that's definitely gonna. If we're gonna go somewhere, it'll be together. Definitely. All right, so I think we can wrap it up there, and I just want to end up by saying that if you're looking for a paid DM, a professional DM, you might want to go to Mindflight Mondays to look at it. Can you just maybe tell us where to find you guys?
Yeah, Mindflight Mondays is mindflightmondays.com. You can find me on all social media at Mindflight Mondays, or on Twitter. It's the only one that's not that. It's Mindflight Mun. But you can reach out to me on there. you can go to our website, contact me through the website, which is, again, mindfullymondays.com. We have shirts on Amazon that we sell.
Oh,
We
that's
also
cool.
we also have content on the DMs Guild, and I have a podcast. But all that information you can find on our website. The episodes drop on Mondays. So, of course, because, your brain's fried on Monday, you might as well have something to pull you back, right?
Right. Cool. All right. So just that, and then of course, if on the other hand you are also a DM or a game master who wants to improve, you can just go behindthedragon.com. You'll find some interesting stuff there, some subscriptions. There's different levels of subscription. We are even having now some live workshops that are very interesting to use the tools. Right now, like May 19th, there's a workshop just on story design, on the nudge system that we were talking about and all that. So, so just go behindthedragon.com and see if you can, as we say, go master, right? So I urge everyone watching this video to look at how we are seriously trying to take game mastering to be a more professional thing. We're trying to differentiate the paid DM from the professional DM, right? You can pay a lot of people, but not all of them take this professionally. Let's try to make that difference. Let's try to assure that when you pay for a DM, it is a professional DM and knows knows how to do stuff. So visit us and share, of course. Share if you like this video. Just share with other people and see where we go together from here.
Yeah, go like the video and then share it. Seriously.
Okay, guys. See you next time. Until next DM encounter. Bye-bye.
Bye.